red enemies, possibly the most power creep trait in the entire game, with just about every cat and its grandma being able to easily counter them. Some red enemies can be threatening, sure, but most of them get countered by one simple and easily obtainable cat, which is Courier. More on him later though. This video will cover the best possible anti-red lineup that will be tested on a custom-made stage that was made in BCU by the way, and that stage is as hard as Stardew Valley. But before we start, some rules have to be set in place. Nearly every unit in the lineup will be at level 50 with max talents if they have them. This list will try to use specialist Ubers over generalist Ubers to avoid having every lineup look the same. For example, Ultimate Windy will be taken over Dark Castle in an anti-floating lineup. If a unit has multiple targets however, that's totally fine. If an Uber happens to have Ultra talents, it may be used at level 60 with those talents maxed. However, only one Ultra talent Uber will be permitted per lineup. And finally, the stages featured in the video will only feature enemies of that specific trait. Multi-trait enemies though are fine. With that being said, let's get into the obvious picks. But before we get started with the video, I just wanted to thank you for the huge amount of support. I mean, we're almost at 6,000 subscribers, which is actually crazy. I also wanted to take the time I have to address something that I saw a lot in our comments of our latest video. Go watch it by the way if you haven't yet. About the AI voice, we did do some AI stuff in the past, but you can be rest assured that this is my real voice. It may sound a bit weird because I have a bit of a cold, but anyways, that's my voice, so if anyone was confused about that, now you know. Now let's actually begin with the video. Eraser and Manic Eraser. Eraser is the second normal cat unlockable in the game, available after beating the tutorial stage Korea. Manic Eraser is obtainable from the stage Vulcanizer. These two will likely appear in most if not all lineups due to being universally good meat shields and carrying the backbone of just about every lineup you'll make in the game. Now, I know I said that specialists will be used over generalists, but I just have to make that exception. Moving on, we have Matador Cat. Matador Cat is obtained from the rare gacha and is also quite an obvious pick, with a 30% dodge chance against reds and a decent health pool of 20k at level 30. Unfortunately, her bulk is not that good due to her free knockbacks, but the 30% dodge chance will prove itself quite well in the red only stage she'll be up against. Now I know all of you saw this pick coming, but we have Courier Cat. How surprising. Courier Cat was added in 11.5 and is the first behemoth egg you will obtain, requiring 5 behemoth calling stages to be obtained, 5 red, and 5 purple behemoth stones to be hatched. Courier has massive damage against red, behemoth slayer, which will be quite relevant in this video, and 3.3k DPS at level 30 with an LD spanning ranges 175 to 400, and that's without even considering the massive damage ability that turns a single courier into a red killing machine. Did I mention this guy has a 6-second cooldown? Next up we have Rogue Cat. Rogue Cat is a super rare unit obtained from the rare gacha. It is one of the best units at its role, being a red tanker that has resistance to red, as well as a chance to weaken them, making its total effective bulk around 300,000 health at level 30, and that doubles when the enemies are weakened. It does have quite a poor range though, so that's something to keep in mind, seeing as every single enemy in the stage is a red enemy. That makes Rogue Cat effectively a spawnable version of Hades. And now we have Neo Cutter Cat. Neo Cutter Cat is a super rare Grandon unit that can be obtained from the gacha, but only when the banner features Grandon units. It's the most limited unit we have discussed so far, but it should still be obtainable from the average player. Same can be said though about the Ubers coming later in the video. Anyways, it acts quite similarly to Bullet Train, being a very fast rusher that's meant to hit once and die. but there are a couple of differences between it and Bullet Train. First of all, it has the massive damage ability against red enemies, giving it an advantage over just using Bullet Train, since normally it is weaker than it. It also has a great chance to deal more than one hit, as it has a guaranteed chance to survive a lethal strike, and a 400% strengthen at 1% HP. This increases its effective damage against red enemies to just over 100,000 at level 30. Finally, it also has immunities to Wave and Weaken, with Wave helping it deal with enemies like Berserkery, Toucan, and Dionil. Can. Can is a super rare that can be obtained from the gacha, making him quite easy to get. While Can is not too well known for its anti-red abilities, it is still an amazing addition to the lineup because of its extreme damage per hit, good speed, low cost, and great survivability. It also has a nice and quite reliable slow against red, but due to it being a single target, it might not be too useful. Its double bounty target especially will prove its effectiveness at squeezing every last penny out of those red enemies featured in stage. With 7 out of 10 cats in our lineup so far, we're going to mention the Ubers. The 3 Ubers mentioned here will do an absolutely amazing job at countering red enemies and will be a staple of this lineup. However, if you find yourself disagreeing with any of the picks we have for this lineup, feel free to join the Discord server to comment your thoughts about it and suggest ideas for the channel. Now, let's get started with the Page Devils, being an Uber rare cat that can be found in the Ultra Soul's banner. Due to being an Ultra Soul, it has 2 forms that should be mentioned. Its first form acts as another spellable AoE attacker, much like Warrior. It can also freeze red enemies quite well when stacked up. The other form worth mentioning is its 2 form, when it turns into a cheap and speedy rusher with good stats for its cost and an amazing 58-second cooldown for an Uber rare. With talents, it gets a 50% chance to weaken and 100% freeze uptime, which is amazing when you consider how stackable it is. Due to its good survivability, Eva 02 or Eva 02 is debatably the best anti-red Uber in the entire game, and even the best anti-red overall. It is an Uber obtainable from the Neon Genesis Evangelion collab gacha. That's a long name, which makes it quite the limited unit, but it is well worth it. It can be called an anti-red Genshiya with a strengthen that doubles its attack power, the same 400 standing range, and a similar 200 to 650 range long distance attack. Due to its massive damage against red and strengthen, it has over 44,000 DPS at level 30, higher than an awakened Bahamut of the same level, and that DPS spans a total of 450 range. You do have to get Eva 02 to its last knockback to achieve this insanely high DPS, but 02 is still amazing even without it. Now, the final Uber and unit we have is Pai Pai. Pai Pai is the signature Uber of the Red Busters lineup, which is a very limited lineup consisting of plenty of good anti-red Ubers. Pai Pai takes the cake as she is the best one. She has both massive damage as boosted DPS up to 24k at level 30, and insanely tough that allows her to have up to 333k effective health against red enemies, so she can be a very good tanker too, and is overall an amazing pick for this lineup. She also has an immunity to weaken, which is nice I guess. Now it's time to test the lineup in action, so let's get into it. And that was all for this video. If you guys liked it, make sure to leave a comment and we might see a part 2. The link to the Discord server will be in the description, plus the link to a new Reddit. Have a good one.